Welcome to this special episode of Why Dance Matters, the Royal Academy of Dance podcast. Just as we'd finished planning the current series, we heard that the choreographer Dame Arlene Phillips was receiving a special honour at the Olivier Awards this spring. This year, they added a special prize for a career that is already jam-packed with achievement. Arlene Phillips, I asked if she'd prefer to be Dame Arlene in the conversation, but she wasn't having it, is a dance legend, constantly reinventing herself. She made her name with the racy dance troupe Hot Gossip in the 1970s, and then became a major player in musical theatre, starting with a whiz and a bang on Andrew Lloyd Webber's Starlight Express, with all the dancers on roller skates. She's given new life to beloved musicals like Saturday Night Fever, Annie and Grease, which returns later this year. She reached a new audience in 2004 on the judging panel for Strictly Come Dancing. To widespread surprise, she was unceremoniously given the boot 5 years later. A graceless blow, shining a spotlight on the very different way men and women are treated in the media, especially as they grow older. Arlene never faltered, and even as she approaches her 80th birthday, she's working with undimmed energy. And the buzz of the Olivier Award coincides with a new theatrical triumph. She's choreographed a stonking new production of Guys and Dolls, an immersive show which puts dancing New York gamblers and showgirls in the middle of a wildly enthusiastic audience. She's clearly not stopping for anyone. We were lucky to grab some time with her just days before the Oliviers, when the entire Royal Albert Hall got to its feet to acclaim someone to whom dance truly matters. Arlene, welcome to Why Dance Matters. It's such a treat to have you here. And especially at this moment when you're about to receive a special Olivier Award for an amazing career. And just a few days ago, the reviews for your latest show, Incredible Guys and Dolls, have appeared. Lots of 5 stars, lots of superlatives. A career in the arts is very up and down. There's a lot of triumph and disaster, and I'm sure you've had both of those. But can you still allow yourself to sort of punch the air when the nice things happen?
I think, having been in the industry for so long, I've had instances of really good reviews, exciting reviews, but now, at almost 80, I think I've had the best reviews I have ever been given for Guys and Dolls. And it's amazing. Every morning I wake up with a smile on my face. I've never known anything like it.
I saw it 2 weeks ago, one of the early previews, and I have pretty much been beaming ever since, because it is deliriously enjoyable, and isn't it? But for people who don't know, it's quite an interesting staging because it's quite immersive. A lot of the audience, where the stalls would be, are standing and milling around and being directed by New York style cops with ushers underneath the uniforms. And tiny bits of stage pop out of the floor to be 1950s New York, with the gamblers and the showgirls and street life just happening all around. And so you and your co-choreographer, James Cousins, are having to create dance in incredibly tight spaces, knowing that people will be pressing in from every angle. How was all of that?
It was incredibly difficult to rehearse because we were rehearsing on a flat floor, be that it was marked up. It does not represent the way that the lifts that become the stage go up and down, and how tiny some of them are and narrow.
Yeah.
And often we've got 16 people, more, 20, 24, on these tiny little spaces. And it's constantly on the move. So where we are and where we present the dance is a constantly moving effect of lifts that go up and down. And it was a real struggle to work out how this was going to happen once we got into the theatre. Now, when I look at it and I realize how many people we pack onto this small floor, this small stage area.
Yeah.
It stuns me to know how James and I actually got through it.
Working it out must have been like advanced maths, because if people take 3 steps in any direction instead of 2, they'll fall off the stage and be in the audience. And as I say, people are looking from all around as well. So whatever you do has to read from every angle. I have no idea how you managed to get your head around that.
Yeah, we're in 4 sides. So choreographically, as well as the staging, constantly takes in 4 sides of an audience. What happens is that the lifts which are moving often means that the performers are stepping up onto a moving lift or stepping down. And the accuracy of how their performances are developed is finite. You have to know what you're doing. You cannot afford to stop thinking. I haven't got a mathematical brain, and it takes a mathematical brain to work out how this all happens, how you stage what, where. It's all time to seconds. The only thing that I've ever done which is like that is probably Starlight Express, which is a musical on roller skates. You have to be to the second, when it's all about trains, when one train passes another train. There's a lot of similarities in Starlight Express, particularly to the bigger productions with ramps and bowls, with impeccable timing. Guys and Dolls is like that, where all of the performers have to think literally on their feet about what happens when. So you're taking in, besides all of the singing, the acting, the dancing, you're also having to be aware of where you're stepping, what you're doing where, how close you are because of the tiny space to another dancer. There is no way you can just get off your mark or just free fall into whatever way you want to do something. It's got to be tight as a drum.
And as I said, for the audience, it is the most fun they will ever have. How much fun is it to make? Because you've got to, as you say, be super, super, super precise. It's got to be perfectly, perfectly drilled. And yet it's a show that communicates a really happy, really positive energy. Is it quite difficult to keep that balance going through rehearsals?
To keep everybody happy during rehearsals was not easy. It was a difficult task. But I think we've got to the point now where the joy that the audience brings to the cast, of the way they gather round to listen, the way any cast member can reach out, pass something to the audience, hand out something, help them live their journey from the New York streets with the cops, going to Havana where the whole audience explodes. And we hope on every level. There are 2 experiences you can have with this show. And that's why we find people always making a second visit. They start sitting and they're seated and they're watching everything from above, but they're also watching the audience as well. And they want to be in the audience. They want to get an immersive experience, and vice versa. People who've done it from the floor and got close to it want to sit in a seat and look over the whole thing, because actually the audience joining in on the floor is also part of the experience.
And even the curtain call at the end, it doesn't stop there, because the cast stick around, the band strikes up, and suddenly everybody's dancing.
Yeah, and then it's party time. It's clubbing at its best. Salsas to disco. What more can you explore and enjoy? And the whole of the cast is dancing with the audience at the end. And actually, those who are seated are allowed to come down, of course, and join in the party. So everybody gets that final lasting experience that has been joining in together with the Guys and Dolls cast.
And as you said, it's not just that the show has had wonderful reviews, but also it must be quite nice after a career when you've done so much and you might have thought you'd done everything, to have a wholly new form of production to play with and to think about. I guess it's quite unusual to get such a new experience for you as well.
Yes, I mean, it's great. I actually met Nick Heitner on a working level. Of course, I've always known who he is, but on a working level when he asked me to choreograph Hallelujah.
Oh, yes, the Alan Bennett play.
Yes. And that was a play with dance and movement. All of the cast was all over 75. And that was fantastic. And we built a relationship there. He then made Julius Caesar, which he did in a very different way, in this immersive way, because the Bridge Theatre can literally turn into anything you want. And so he first did Julius Caesar, where the audience were part of it. And then we went on to do Midsummer Night's Dream, which he'd asked me to do. And it was just the most glorious experience working in the way that Nick had with Julius Caesar for Midsummer Night's Dream. And we had incorporated contemporary music and dance throughout that, where the audience was a big part of joining in. And Nick then said, I want to do a musical. I had no idea of what he wanted to do. And bang, along comes the pandemic, when he started to think about the musical he really wanted to do was Guys and Dolls, but we couldn't do it when planned. And actually, I feel that Nick's choice of when this happened was absolutely the right time. The audience is ready for it. The audience feels that they can go along and participate. But for me, having this experience has just been the icing on the cake of an already quite, I guess, illustrious career.
Illustrious is the word. It is a good cake already. We're also celebrating your special award at the Oliviers, which is fantastic. I mean, I suppose becomes a moment for looking back. And when you do, where did you expect your career to take you? Was this the career you always thought you'd have?
Oh, my career has been the biggest surprise, totally unexpected. You know, a very poor kid in Manchester who wanted to dance, and you know, my parents couldn't afford dance classes, and an uncle came along and said he'll pay for me to dance. It's all I ever dreamed about, and planned on going to London, going to one of the dance schools in London. But my mother passed away, and it was impossible to leave my home. I was 15 at the time, and my younger sister was 12. So it just wasn't going to happen. So I eventually became a dance teacher in Manchester. And actually, that's what I expected to do. I had no other dreams then. I'd settled into teaching and was offered by the head of my dance school, Muriel Tweedy, when I was teaching there, to go to London for a week and study different styles of dance that I didn't do. And I went into a class at the then Dance Centre with a teacher called Molly Malloy, who did modern American jazz, Luigi style. Once I'd taken that class, when I say I never went home, I mean I never went home to Manchester. I didn't continue my teaching job. I told my teacher I'd pay every penny back. And so studied with Molly and began teaching again.
And what was it about that class that flicked that switch for you?
It was because it was a cross between, it was jazz, but it was classical and contemporary at the same time. It spoke all the words that I had imagined dance to be, but never seen before. I loved West Side Story. I wanted to be a ballerina. My mind was kind of ablaze with the kind of dance I dreamed of. but never felt I would experience it. And teaching in London, I decided to put a dance group together with the best pupils in my classes that came to my rock jazz, I called it at the time, that the students who came to my class. And I used to watch television, and it was a lot of, very happy, high kicking dancers, but didn't have the depth and the motion and the lyricism of the dance that I was teaching, that I wanted, having been taught by Molly, to be on television, random thought. So I put my group together, I called them Hot Gossip, wanting everyone to talk about them.
It's a good name.
It was remarkably unsuccessful. For 3 years, we sort of danced in odd nightclubs with no success, but emotional fulfillment for me to see the kind of dance I want. And one day, a director of a new TV program saw Hot Gossip dance and said to his PA, I'm doing a new TV show, go and find Arlene Phillips and this group. And there was a photo of them that had been in the paper, and find this group, Hot Gossip. And he hired us from a photograph. He didn't know we could dance, but he knew that the look and the idea of this group on television was going to be extraordinary. Well, it was what people think an overnight success. It was explosive. We were talked about in the House of Parliament. We were on the front page of every newspaper because they were the sexiest dance group that had ever been on television.
And it is interesting, isn't it? Because I suppose at that time people wouldn't use a phrase like sex positive, but it was. You weren't scared to go there. Was that a conscious decision, or was that just the dance you wanted to make?
My dance was very sensual, but I think what exaggerated it was when I started Hot Gossip, we could not afford costumes. There was no way. So I would look around lingerie shops thinking, well, if I buy a load of lingerie, you can dye it so many different colors and add a bit of lace or frills or a pair of stockings and suspenders, and you can just make it look like the most extraordinary outfit. And one of our dancers had a part-time job in one of the first sex shop costumers, and they loaned us costumes. And so it was all built on this very, I guess, erotic styling. And of course, that was a challenge for TV, but that's what we kind of built our loyal following. And we had a very loyal following in London. Everybody who was everybody came to see Hot Gossip. We had the style, we had the look, but what we didn't have was access to television. And that's what the Kenny Everett show and David Mallet, who picked us for that show, chose to be on television. And we were filming with a single camera. All the television studios used 3-4 cameras, and they shot dance as they saw it. David shot the performers, every part of them. So every part of them was living, breathing movement. And it was one camera. So with that single camera, you're choosing to do the wide shots, but you're also choosing a lot of close-ups. And that is what made the show so different, what made the dance so different. And from that point on, it changed television, because every dance group became a form of Hot Gossip somehow. The sensual dance, the couple dance. It wasn't just a group of either happy-go-lucky smiling dancers or a little old girls group looking sweet. This was something very different. And a lot of dance was shot single camera after that.
A few years after that, you had another exciting career reinvention. You took your leap into musicals, which I think partly owed itself to a chance encounter with Andrew Lloyd Webber. You had a conversation about roller skates.
Yes. Well, what had happened, as Hot Gossip became successful, they were then invited with me as choreographer to be in a film musical called Can't Stop the Music, which starred the Village People and Caitlyn Jenner. We were making the film. At the time, the Village People were extremely successful, But by the time the film had been made, the Village People were no longer popular. And the musical, well, it was a lot of fun. It had massive dance numbers in it. But in the making of this film, I was asked to do a roller skating number. And Alan Carr, the producer, got me a roller skate teacher. I was pregnant when I was making the film.
Oh, my goodness.
And had my baby in the middle on a hiatus. But Alan Carr came in to watch, saw me on roller skates and realized that he actually hadn't insured me on the roller skates. He panicked and screamed, "Get the roller skates off." And when I met Andrew Lloyd Webber, who had been a fan of Hot Gossip from its early days, he was chatting about doing a new musical on roller skates. And he said, "Do you roller skate?" And I said, "Yes." Great, but I roller skate. And he asked me to choreograph Starlight Express, which literally broke my career into musical theatre. I was then asked to do, Grease, Saturday Night Fever, We Will Rock You, endless Sound of Music. It just goes on and on.
Anyone listening to this will have already realised that you generate a lot of positive energy. And is that something you need for this kind of work when you're running a rehearsal, running a room? Do you have to sort of get the motor humming and keep it humming at quite a high pitch?
Yeah. I think the thing that you have to learn as a choreographer of different genres, and for me that was not hard. It's become much harder. Often when a choreographer starts in one way, whether it's musicals or whether it's music videos, commercials, whatever it is, you start in one way, it's hard to break into another. For me, you have to have a different persona. For a musical, you're generally dealing with a lot of people, you're dealing with producers, directors, and you have to look at what is the book, what is the story, where is dance involved, does it have to forward the story, or is it a pure creative dance number? On musical videos, you've got maybe a day, possibly two to rehearse, if you're lucky. Often you rehearse early morning of the day of making the music video, and you have to be ready on it. You have to work with different stars. I've worked with Whitney, Elton John, Aretha Franklin, so many, and everyone wants something different for you. So you have to be on the ball, ready. Films, making the film of Annie with John Huston, you put a year of your life aside. The film takes a year to make. And every day, you are working and developing, filming, and you have to have the patience of a saint, particularly like doing Annie, where I'm working with, I don't know, it felt like hundreds of children. You have to be on your toes all the time in many different ways. You have to be like a chameleon, ever changing.
And it sounds as if, quite apart from the phenomenal choreography skills, it's the people skills as well that you need.
Yeah, it's definitely people skills. And you often have to have a tough skin. And can I say often as a woman, you certainly, when I began my career, had pretty much all male creative teams, producers, director. I was unusual at the time. I think it was Gillian Lynn and myself, very unusual in a female choreographer. And you have to be tough. And if you're not, you have to hold it back and wait for your moment. It was not easy.
I'm sure.
What an opportunity to travel, to see the world, to meet so many different people and leave behind a kind of almost legacy of work.
How much have the dance and entertainment world changed over your career? Because you mentioned being, I suppose, often the only woman in the room in some of those early days and early creative meetings. Does it feel that things have changed, are changing?
I think things have definitely changed. I mean, the extraordinary dancers you get to work with now who do every style imaginable. It's the tools that you get to work with. Dancers, classical dancers. I mean, just watching the Royal Ballet, when I think of yesteryear and watching their dances now, let's say in Crystal Pipe, Flight of Passage, the way dancers are moving and changing and advancing the many different styles they do, that's a gift. There are wonderful, new, extraordinary choreographers, young choreographers creating new work, new pieces, new musicals. It's wonderful to watch the changing world and the progression. And yes, there's definitely more women in the industry, far more women. You probably count them on two hands, maybe, 2.5, as opposed to, one finger. It is growing, and we are reaching out and becoming far more diverse. I don't think, until we're 50-50, we'll ever be perfect.
It is wonderful and very energizing to talk to someone who clearly loves their work the way you do. It's a real jolt of energy. What's the biggest satisfaction for you in making something?
Oh, the biggest satisfaction. Well, I've always advised young dancers, that want to go into this world, whether it's theatre, whatever it is they want to do in dance, they want to do it. And I have said, the first thing you need is a tough skin, because you face rejection every day and you have to find a way, go away, cry, kick your feet, do whatever you want, stamp, scream, shout, feel that it was unjust, unfair. And then you have to come around and find a way to move on. And I find the greatest satisfaction that I picked myself up and carried on. Just moving on was one of the biggest and greatest satisfactions that I have, because I did it myself.
And at the Oliviers, people will be quite rightly celebrating your achievements. It's, I'm sure, going to be an amazing evening. What are you most proud of?
Oh, I always say when I'm asked this question, it's like picking a favourite child. Daughters, two granddaughters I love immensely. I think my proudest achievement is something that in the big picture is very small. And my first love was classical ballet. My experience of going to watch the Royal Ballet when they came to Manchester, standing outside, waiting for autographs, and it's all I ever dreamed about was being a ballerina, being on that stage. When I came to London and started teaching jazz, Wayne Sleep used to creep out of the Royal Ballet to come and do my jazz classes. He was so afraid at the time of being caught in a jazz class on Floral Street. He would sneak in and sneak out. And we did a couple of pieces together, dance pieces together, which was incredible. And then I was asked by Ed Watson to create a small piece for him for a little evening he was doing, Whelan Watson with Wendy Whalen. And he asked me to create a piece for him. And I think I hold that most dear in my heart, because I never expected to be invited to someone that I love, respect, and a dance that I dreamed of doing, ballet, to work with one of the eminent dancers. And I did. And I think it's that I'm proudest of.
Oh, that's lovely. And amazing that things can come full circle as well. It's really beautiful. Arlene, we have just taken up lots of your time. I am going to ask the final question as we celebrate your career, which is, why does dance matter to you?
Dance matters to me because it has brought me a lifelong career, but also when you dream of doing something and want it so badly and think you'll never get there because you're the poor little girl whose mum couldn't afford to buy pink ballet shoes, and I wore vivid green ones and got through it. Well, it's a dream come true. That's why dance matters to me.
Thank you so much, Arlene. It's been such a pleasure to speak to you. And congratulations again. Dance teaching's loss was the stage's gain. Arlene Phillips takes no nonsense, she takes no prisoners, and she blazes commitment. Dame Arlene is quite the force of nature. No wonder she took to an immersive production of Guys and Dolls. Total immersion is clearly her way with everything she does. It's great to see someone getting their flowers and receiving recognition while still going full throttle. And it's a wonderful way to close our 5th season of the podcast, beginning with the fizz of ballerina Tyler Peck and the RAD's Tim Arthur, continuing to guests from Singapore and Brazil, and truly enriching conversations with choreographer Francesca Harper and actor Giles Terrera. As ever, we'd love to know who you think we should meet on Why Dance Matters. I'm at Mr. David Jays on Twitter, the RAD is at RAD Headquarters, and there's more in our show notes. Please do subscribe, like or review the podcast. You won't want to miss the start of Season 6 in June. Our guest today was Dame Arlene Phillips. Why Dance Matters is made by the RAD team of Niamh Carey-Furness and Katie Hagan. Our artwork is by Bex Glendinning. And a standing ovation, please, for our producer, Sarah Miles. I'm David Jays. Take care and see you next season.